Hi there. I'm Patricia Doyle. Welcome back to Artisans Alley. We're here at the Vernon Community Arts Centre today with Christine Kashuba. She's been a guest on Artisans Alley before doing cyanotype, but this time Christine's here to show us something about screen printing. Welcome here.
Thanks. So screen printing is a really fun process. It can be really simple or it can be really complicated. It depends what you want to do. So today we're going to do a couple things that are really simple, and then we'll show you some of the process that created some of the things that are a bit more complicated.
Great. Okay.
All right. So first thing that you need is a screen. So it's called silk screening because originally they did use silk.
Oh, really?
To push the ink through. So how screen printing works is you have a screen and it's a mesh. These are synthetic meshes, so either polyester or nylon. And you have something that is going to block the paint or the ink from going through. So you'll have something underneath this that will block it. So if you push the ink from this side, it's going to leave that shape as a white.
The ink can't physically go through the blocked spots.
That's right.
Okay,
so
good.
That's the basic principle of screen printing. So if you want to screen print at home, you can start with something as simple as just a little screen that you could buy, say, at Opus or something like that. Mm-hmm. You could even use like an embroidery hoop with organza or some kind of fabric that has.
Sure, that would work.
Yeah.
You just want it taut, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So this is called a screen.
Mm-hmm.
That's called a screen. This is called a screen. There's all different shapes, sizes, and configurations of screens. Basically, it's a frame, either wood or metal, that holds the fabric tight, or the polyester or whatever tight. So you'll need one of those. You will need a squeegee. So this is what's going to push the ink through the screen. So if you've got a small screen, you want a squeegee that's going to fit inside of it.
Okay.
And it can be as small as this little guy. So if you're doing just a little teeny, say you had just a little teeny something you were doing.
An accent
you
part.
could just do like
that's
something
so
really
cute.
teeny like that. And then you need something that's going to prevent the ink from going through.
Okay.
So there's different things. So you can do something like just use pieces of paper that you've ripped up, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. So that's probably the simplest.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could use something like an existing stencil that you would put underneath the screen and tape on and then push the ink through. You can make your own. So here's an example, a little deer or a little turtle. So this little turtle, I might use my little teeny squeegee. Same thing, so that would go underneath, and then you would squeegee.
So everything that's blocked will not have ink go through.
That's right. So that's one way of doing it, is by using or
Stencils.
creating stencils.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it with using something called, this is called Mask Ease, and it's a similar idea where it's kind of it's an adhesive. So you would cut your stencil, cut your design, and then you would stick this to the bottom of your screen, and it would not move that way. So you'd be guaranteed, or almost guaranteed, that it's going to stay in the same place.
Nice crisp lines with when the stencil doesn't move.
That's right.
Well, that's a big plus.
So when you're doing just a basic screen, you will probably only do one run of the ink. Yeah, one color. Or you might use a bunch of colors, but on one pull. Mm-hmm. So when you put the squeegee on and you put the ink and you, whoop, that one's too big, that's not going to work. You're going to hold your squeegee at about a 45-degree angle.
Yes.
And you're going to pull it across, and that's going to push the ink through. So you can put a variety of colors on here, or you can put one color on here. Another way to block, so other than using stencils, another way to block the ink is by doing something like this. You can see that masking tape was on there for a while. And this is a drawn image. So to create a drawn image, you would use a product like this. It's a drawing fluid, and you would actually use a brush, and you would paint what you want your final image to be onto here. And then you'd let it dry. And then you would take something called a screen filler, which is this lovely kind of orangey red stuff, and you would cover the whole back with that, let that dry, and then you run it under water. And what happens is wherever your drawing fluid is, it washes out. So then you end up with the space
A really nice,
for the ink
yeah.
to go through.
That's wonderful.
So you can get, so doing these kind of things, it's a very basic shape. You can't get lots of detail typically with this. With this you can get a lot more detail, but there too sometimes there's limitations because of, you can't get it as totally fine detail, but
And does
more.
that one wash out afterwards if you want it to and
Yes,
reuse
so
the silk?
on that side you'll see the big container of, it's called Speed Clean, and so after you're done with this, you're going to apply that and let it soak and follow the instructions.
Or you can keep that if you want to
or you
reuse
can
that?
keep it. This one has been here for a long time, but you can wash it out. So that's that's a drawn image, and then there's also photo emulsion kinds of coatings. So if you did a photo emulsion, it's the diazo over there, you would actually take your screen. You would mix these two things together, makes it photosensitive. We're not doing it today because we're not in the dark room.
We're close, but we're not completely dark.
And you would just totally coat the screen with this, and it's light sensitive, you let it dry. And then you would take a stencil.
In a black bag, right?
Yeah, then you would take a stencil or something like this, and you would expose it in the light. So this would go underneath here. You would expose it, and then the same thing, you would wash it, and where the black is on here, you would end up with where the ink is going to go through. So
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's, and then you can get more detail like, say this one. This is the Kashuba collection. We did that with our grandkids one year, so that's that.
That's fun.
Or this Imagination at Work that's right behind you. So that one there, where you can get more detail. And then if you have a big photo bed, then you can actually do something like these, which it almost looks like a photograph.
It does.
Right? So that, or the one to your right, or this one, those are all done with screens. So this had 3 different screens. I don't know how many that one had. So for each color, you need another screen.
Right.
So you have to really, if you want to do complicated ones, think about the process. It's kind of like planning a painting, the composition, what you want it to look like.
And then you use register marks to be sure that each one is lined up exactly right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's the tricky part.
Okay, well, let's play in some ink.
Enough talking already, hey? All right.
So your ink is out already. I just thought I'd remind you.
So our ink is out, and I'm going to do a really simple print. Oh, and I was going to tell you guys about these too. These lovely little hinge things, you can make your own. So if you want to do this screen printing at home, you can get a screen like this, and you can get these lovely little clamps. And then the advantage of this is that you can then put it up and down, and for each time you want to print, you can load it with ink and then print, and then lift it up, move your paper out, put another paper in.
And it'll be lined up and centered.
Yeah. And it makes it so you can make multiples. So it's different than block printing or monotype printing in that you can make additions with screen printing. All right.
Like think Andy Warhol, right?
Yes,
Repetition
and he was,
brings more to, like having that same Campbell soup can or the same Marilyn Monroe in that many images brings a strength to that body of work that wouldn't have been there with one can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think we're going to use this one because I think that's going to be easier to do.
Okay.
So that people can see what's going on. Woo. So I'm going to just put a plain piece of paper because when you're printing, you want to test it usually first. To your right is actual printmaking paper, Reeves BFK.
Ooh.
Yeah. So when you're
Nice.
actually wanting to print, you're going to want a paper that's kind of more sturdy than this. But we're just going to play around with this. So we've got some lovely shapes. I asked Patricia, my assistant, to make these lovely, lovely shapes. So I'm just going to pick a few. Let's see here. I'm going to just think about, not really too much, really. Plop them on here. Sorry, that wasn't a very delicate word.
Plop?
Plop.
I thought it sounded very genteel, personally.
Okay, so this is going to be just a collection of
Various shapes.
shapes, and we're going to pick a variety of colors. And I'm just testing this to see that it's kind of centered in my screen. So with this type of printing, it's a little bit loosey-goosey, right? So you do want to make sure your paper's in the middle of your screen so you don't run out of stuff.
That'd be good.
Okay, so our ink, so I have a variety of inks here. Some of them are more viscous than others. And so for this, I am just going to take a little bit.
These are water-based?
Yeah, they're water-based speedball inks.
Okay.
And I'm going to make a, whoop, I'm going to lift this up so that it doesn't go through right away.
Yeah.
It's going to go through when I push it through, not, because if I let this sit down there,
Yes.
it's quite likely that it's going to, a little
Seep.
bit of it's going to go through. So I don't really want that. And this red is really thick today, so I'm just going to put a little bit more yellow at this end.
Okay.
All right. So for those of you that are sensitive, cover your ears. This is called a turd. Okay? That's really a printmaking term. Anyway.
I know. You guys are wacko. I love it.
So I'm going to load the screen. So I'm going to put my squeegee here at an angle. And I did this backwards. I should have put the turd down there. But anyways, and so you can see
That loads the screen with ink.
Yeah, so that screen is now loaded with ink. So now I'm going to go back the other direction, putting this all the way down and pushing quite hard on here. Ha, stuck. That's a good sign. All right, so you can see that there's pieces still stuck on the bottom of this. So we can leave those there and they'll continue to block that. So this is not a very exciting image, but it might be the start of something that then you can print over top of. So let's say that then we wanted to take this, and we could then take maybe something like this and print over top of that to create a more interesting image. So I'm going to put black on this one,
Okay.
and we're going to see what happens. Okay. So if you would like to try something a bit more complicated, say like this card, it has 3 layers of ink, 3 colors. It's got the black, it's got the red, and it's got the green. So how you would do that is you would actually create 3 separate screens.
Okay.
And each screen does a color. So this screen, sorry, turn this
Oh
around.
my goodness.
So this screen, if you can see that.
So there's the black.
There's the black. So if I printed the black onto a sheet of paper like this, then I'd like, how do I know where to put the red and where to put the green? So that's where something called registration comes into play. So registration is marking
The frame.
so you know where it's going to go. Whoop, that's going to be on that black. So what you can do is you can put a piece of like a transparency or Mylar or whatever, and then print, so that's printing the green, and then I know that's where it's going to be. So then I can take my piece of paper that I want to print onto, and I can go, okay, I want this to be, and then I can move this around till I have it exactly in the right place. And my registration things are not lining up because this is an 8.5.
Oh, the paper's a different size than your cards are,
So
sure.
this was originally done on a card size, so that's why, if you're wondering why those registration lines are not working exactly right. So, so I could line this up and say, okay, that's where I want my green, and then just flip this out of the way, put my screen down, put a little bit of green on here, a little turd. I know it's
You're having
funny.
fun with that, aren't you?
It feels funny to be able to say that and actually be like, it's an actual official word that you could use, right, in printmaking. And then because this is a very small area, I can use a small squeegee like this. I
Okay.
don't have to use the big one. So I can just simply put this down. So stand them there. And then when we lift this up,
Oh, good
you
job.
can see the green is now on my, and then ordinarily you'd let this dry. But I already have my red that I want to do on here. So I'm going to turn this around so you can see this. So this was my green screen over here, and this is my red down here. So I'm going to line that up with my image. And here too, this is going to cause a problem because I didn't, my registration is for the card, not for this piece of paper. And I'm just looking through. This is a not the.
But because it's a bow and not a complete
Yeah.
filling in the outline, it's not as critical.
That's right. So then I would line this up to make it as, I got to turn this around because this is upside down to me. Just a minute. And make sure that everything is going the right direction and that I'm happy with this. And so before I'm going to put any ink on here, I'm just going to set this up and down until I'm happy with the location of this. Take a little bit of red now.
It does set up fairly quickly, doesn't it?
It does, especially when it's warm, like
Yeah.
it is in here.
Yeah.
So same thing, putting my ink on there. And I'm just going to fill it this time first and hope that that paper didn't move. And then,
I have faith in you.
there, okay, let's have a look and see what we did. And this is really the trickiest part when you're doing multiples, is to get the registration lined up.
Mm-hmm.
So-
And if you're all, like Christine said, if you're working on a certain size card consistently,
Yeah, then you have it
then
all
you set it all up in it, you can do multiples.
That's right. And
Because
then,
you make a lot of Christmas cards.
yes, I do. And that's, that's a really advantage of screen printing. So screen printing is used for all kinds of things. Screen printing doesn't have to just be used on paper. Screen printing can be used, it's used commercially. It can be used on bottles, it can be used on metal, it can be used on fabric. So it's very
Clay.
versatile. It can be I'm working on that one for sure. So simple images can be screen printed on T-shirts. Trust me.
Go ahead,
I
wipe
can't
it off on me.
can't take it out. So for example, the crossword behind you, if you want to just grab hold of that one, and I'll grab hold of this part of it. So you might think that that's, a pretty simple thing. It's bright and colorful and whatever. But there actually is a lot of planning that has to go into something like that. So if you want to set that back. So I started out just like you might with doing a drawing or a study for a painting, or where I actually did little kind of color charted it out on these little pieces of mylar. So figured out where I wanted my different colors. So I'm using 3 colors and black. So this one had 4 screens. All right, so each of these represents a different screen. So to do that, so here's my little graph paper with my words that I had picked out for all about color and whatever. So had planned that. Then because it's on a large piece of paper, because screens come in all different sizes, screens can come to be huge things, right? So it was done with, that piece was created with ink that is set by light, ultraviolet light. And so you create your stencil also using a photo emulsion, like we talked about a little bit earlier. All right, so then this is actually one of the, I guess I could call it a transparency that I would use to expose the screen. And so here too, everywhere that I wanted it to be black is black on here.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but screen printing is different than block printing because it's not a mirror image. It's actually what you see is what you get.
Nice. You don't have to reverse any lettering or
No,
anything.
no, so everything is the way that you see it. So
Great.
that was one layer. And then you'll see that this doesn't really look like much, but what it is it's the other layers. So if I put this over top of here,
It's actually kind of hard to see probably from your angle, but we'll get a shot of it. It's quite an intricate design of leaves. Yeah.
so it's like a rubbing.
Very beautiful.
Yeah, that was done. So then if you were to screen this, just like these little cards, you would have 3 big screens that size, or actually 4 big screens that size, that you would then, each one would be a color. So you have to think ahead as to what you want your final image to be.
That blows my mind.
And you have to plan it out well enough so that you know which color is going to be on which screen too. So it can be a bit complicated.
No
but it's
kidding.
really a fun process to try to figure out how, whoops, I see that.
It sounds very challenging.
Well, it can be. It can be as challenging as you want it to be, right? It's kind of like one of those things that you're like, I wonder what would happen if. And I'm really good at doing
kind of the way
this.
you roll too,
yeah,
right?
it is. And then if you'll hand me that one behind you. So this is a really little image. So this little print, if you look at it, it looks like, it looks like it's kind of gray and black and not very exciting in the sense that there's not bright colors like the one we just showed you. So this one actually had about 8 layers of ink on it.
Of different colors?
So what I did is I actually recorded all the different layers on, I thought
separately.
it would be fun to just keep track of what it was and how it looks. So my first layer was this grayish layer. Then there was a blue layer, cyan layer, and a magenta layer. And then there was another gray layer, but you can see that each one has a little bit different configuration. And then kind of work from light to dark. Okay. Kind of like Ukrainian Easter eggs, from light to dark.
Yeah.
And then the darker, the midtones, and then finally your darkest one. And then this one actually was like a shadow kind of thing that went on the top. So those all came. So this is just it's a process, right? So each one of these was like, this is one of the layers, right? But this is what I used to make the stencils. This is what I used to make
the light-sensitive
ones, right?
Nice. Yeah.
So yeah, so I just wanted to show that because even though this is, people might consider this like a kind of monochromatic gray and black, if you look closely, you can see a million other little colors because where the blues and the yellows and the reds overlap, you can.
It's also quite
green
a divine design, right? It's kind of got everything going on. You've hit all the design points that people look for in good art.
Yeah, and it's interesting to do. So, yeah, screen printing it's versatile, and it's can be challenging, but it can also be just plain and simple. So the T-shirt behind you simply was the imagination at work. This one, this space, that was the only screen printed part on here, and then the rest was just a screen that I spray painted. I fabric spray paint through to create the design.
Nice.
So, so screen printing can also be incorporated with other things.
And do you use a fabric ink or
on
these ones?
So I feel on the, if you look on your screen printing ink, it will say, like on this one it says fabric.
Okay.
So if you want to print on fabric, you're going to look for fabric written on here. And what it is the ink is a little bit more flexible, and so it's not going to crack off.
So when your clothes move, it doesn't crack.
That's right. It moves with it. So it's kind of important to notice that. Now, this picture right behind, this was done like from a photograph. It was actually two or three different photographs, and then the screens were made from that. And then
how many screens?
I think that one would have probably had 3 or 4 screens. So what you have to do is, if you think about a printing process, the CMYK, so you have to kind of think in that way. So
cyan, magenta, black, and yellow.
Yeah. Yep. And so, so you can create all those colors from those 4
That's incredible.
basic colors.
It's looking at art in a completely different way, isn't it? It's like mold making, right? When you start doing reverse thinking.
Yeah, it is, very much so.
Yeah.
So then I'm going to get you to grab just the Warhol style. You mentioned Warhol earlier. So Warhol was probably the artist that made screen printing most known. So these are, I just call them after Warhol because they're so bright and crazy.
Hold it still for a sec.
Oops, just a sec. I'm just going to take this off of here. There. Okay. So this looks really bright and crazy, and it's got a zillion different colors in it.
A lot of depth.
So there too, I did a thing that kind of was a recording of all the different colors. So you can see that I did this kind of a screen color, this color of screen, this color of screen.
Is this from your baseball bat series or your baseball series?
Yeah. So first first I threw baseballs, and then I took a picture of it, and then I broke it down into all these different colors, and then I screen printed it.
I remember that great big copper one that you did. That was she just threw a baseball at a copper sheet for how many times?
I don't know, lots.
Yeah.
And I did some paper ones too. So yeah, so then the blue, and then the final color on here was the black. So even though this might look like it was just done in one fell swoop, it actually is a combination of all of these different layers.
Isn't that neat?
And so you have to have a screen for each layer. So you have, so yeah.
You're
you have
crazy.
You have to have a lot of screens, yeah.
Do you?
So, I don't have as many now as when I was at school and had access to the print shop. But you can do it, like, you can just wash out your screen and make a new screen, for each layer too. So this one is the same kind of idea as this one, but it's combining kind of a drawn element and a photographic element. But there too, the 4 colors make that image. Same, so you can see how vibrant this is, and then how kind of muted that is. And this one, I'm going to pull off here, try to do this without knocking this down. So you can see on this one that there's a lot of detail. So this was actually a drawn image. So I drew it first, and I drew 3 different layers. And then those 3 layers became the screens.
So did you have like the tree on a piece of paper and then you drew elements of it on the silk, or?
No, I actually drew it on like a mylar.
Oh, okay.
Like these little guys. So bigger pieces of mylar, which mylar is like a plastic that's frosted on one side. It makes it easier to draw.
It's kind of translucent.
Yeah, and so I physically drew on mylar like this, the different elements, and then made screens from that, and then printed them. So, yeah, so it's something that when you have access. So this kind of detail you can get with the inks that don't harden until you put them through the UV press. So you can get really like fine detail in here because it doesn't get hard. Like our ink today that we put through the screen at the beginning, it got hard in the screen
right
in
away.
Minutes,
yeah.
Right? Whereas this will just stay soft until you actually put it through the light, the UV light.
Your explanation of this tells me, I mean, how many years have I known you? A long time, right?
Yeah.
This tells me more about the way your brain works than anything we've ever done together. And we've done a lot of things together, but this is incredible. I'm in awe. So Christine, you have a website, right?
I do.
And what's the address?
Just ChristineKashuba.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're the manager at Mackey House,
I am.
which is a pretty big deal here in Vernon,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's a great place to come visit. It's a historical house, a heritage house, and there's tours and teas and concerts and all kinds of stuff.
You've
going
had
on.
artists in residence there. You've had all kinds of very interesting musical things happen, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And you're part of Absolutely here at the Vernon Community Arts Centre. You've taught here a lot, but are you ever going to teach screen printing?
Yeah, I can. I don't have a set date yet, but I think that in the fall we'll look at doing that.
Oh,
because it's a
good.
really fun thing.
Yeah, you've taught a lot of different things
Yeah.
here.
I taught screen printing, kids screen printing in some of the summer classes a few years ago.
Oh,
and
nice.
that was really fun. And we actually did expose screens using the photo emulsion. And so the kids could do a drawing, and then we exposed it, and then they could screen print a T-shirt to take home.
Oh, that's
So,
fun.
yeah, it's really fun to do those things.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are, and you just flew in last night, so it's awesome that you came. Thanks.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here.
And that's a wrap. We're here at the Vernon Community Arts Centre in Polson Park. I'm Patricia Doyle, and thanks for spending some time with us.